Welcome back to the Ethics Guild podcast. We actually have a special guest, Benson Phillips from Australia. Cool guy. He's going to tell us a little bit more about his story, which is very interesting. Talks a lot about resilience, guys, and how the importance of resilience to overcome any sort of adversity. Uh, Kevin and Autumn, as usual, with us. They are my partners in crime with this. We cannot be successful without them. But let's dig in real quick to Benson. Benson Phillips, tell us where you're from and where you want to start with your story.
Well, I guess we could start with. Well, I'm from Australia. I'm a town in Newcastle at the moment. I guess we could start with my journey with drugs, I guess, and addiction, and where it's led to me now, and how I'm going with it, and stuff like that. Um, so I guess I started with my addiction. I started when I was about 16. I started just smoking marijuana when I was about 16 and drinking alcohol, and then it sort of progressed from there.
Question for you. When when you were first getting started to get into the world of drugs, what influenced you to try it?
Well, I guess it was just to fit in, you know. I generally have social anxiety, and I struggled with just fitting into the crowd, and I think it was just to be cool, I guess. To start, and then it led to greater, like the clubbing scene, and just further harder drugs, and then it obviously progressed to just isolating and using alone, um, which is pretty sad, but it is what it is.
Yeah. With marijuana, like I know there's like sometimes like it could be said that it's a gateway, but at the same time it could be used as medicinal, it could be used as
Yeah,
recreational. It's a tool sometimes when it's a tool when it's not abused. And
yeah,
and I sometimes I smoke marijuana a lot too. Sometimes I get into a place where it's like where I'm not using it as a tool.
yeah.
Uh,
Well, I guess you could say I used a lot. I used a lot alone too. At the beginning, it was with friends and stuff like that. But then it progressed to with marijuana. On the marijuana front, it began to use a lot alone. So like I'd just smoke all day, every day, and yeah, it got worse and worse. But that's just marijuana, and that's just one aspect of the drug addiction. Yeah,
It's not an
yeah.
easy thing to definitely start coping with different things to definitely distract you from going back into that into those habits, right? And I'm pretty
yeah.
sure Autumn probably has like a she always got good questions, man. I'm telling you, you might want to hold yourself to your seat, Vincent.
First, I just want to say thank you for coming on here and for
No,
sharing.
you're welcome.
I know that it's very vulnerable to share. And, I admire you a lot. I have somebody very close to me who has struggled with addiction like my whole life. And something in their story is like when when they finally were able to get clean, they were struggling with like rediscovering themselves because
Yeah.
they ma- they masked like who they were for so long. So I'm just
Yeah.
curious, like what was that moment like when you were able to like meet yourself again and the sober you? What was that like finding like your new interests and your new passion?
Well, I guess I'm still going through it. I guess, and it's hard because, and I'm finding that fitness is a big thing. Fitness is really a big factor of, finding myself again and reconnecting with, just like nature and just surroundings myself, and being aware to, like all the things that I was blinded to, and not locking myself away in this room, in this place of darkness, and getting out there and finding myself. Like this morning, I went to the gym, which was good, and so it's just getting myself back out there, getting myself with people, and reconnecting.
That's
I
beautiful.
guess, and just
Yeah.
finding hobbies. I guess new hobbies will like I like writing, I like reading, but I guess that new things will come as the journey progresses. You know.
Yeah, it's admirable to see that that journey to rediscover yourself. Your
Yeah.
brain sometimes at beginning so much fear because it's also unknown. But then you
Mm.
look back, and this is my question to you. When you look back and say, well, I already know that path, and that path doesn't lead me to any better circumstances. When you were looking forward to rediscover yourself, tell me a little bit about that fear of rediscovering yourself. What did you fear mostly?
Well, I didn't really. I feared it, but I guess I was just over it. Over the withdrawals, over the chasing, over the putting myself in precarious situations. You know, like the dangers of getting using drugs now and getting drugs is just like at any moment I could use to get drugs or go get drugs. I could be arrested. I could be hurt. I could be, I could kill. I could die. You know, basically, like especially using large amounts of drugs too. You know, it's dangerous, and I've got to really, really. That's the fear, I guess, that's the fear, I guess, of what I was putting myself into. Like I just take so many drugs and put myself out there on the street, and anything could happen, you know. And then that's what what I realized. You know, it's time to really knuckle down and move on, you know, and get on this journey and put myself out there for anyone to see and help. Because I know a lot of people are going through what I'm going through.
I could imagine because, like, for example, addiction is completely different than having like post traumatic stress disorder
Yeah,
because obviously there's more chemical reactions in your body, especially in your brain and your hypothalamus, right?
yeah,
Uh, and to withdraw, exercising is so much an essential key
mm,
because it produces it's almost like it transforms the dopamine that you were produced by the substance abuse, but you have to like create a new drug for your brain, which is and a strong drug is exercise. You mentioned how exercise revigorates you. Um, where the like for example, when you work out, what is that sensation you get that is different from abusing drugs?
yeah. So I guess it's an overall fulfillment of like doing well, doing good, pushing yourself to the limit, and I guess I don't know, like just an overall sense of accomplishing something when you get it done. You know, for example, with the push-ups, like I was doing a lot of push-ups, and so you get down on the floor and you get down and you get them done, and I guess that right there is pushing yourself to the limit and getting it done, and yeah, a sense of accomplishment really.
Interesting.
Which is
Interesting.
which is like the same as having like a hit of drugs, like you know what I mean. So you have the drug and you're like, oh, for relief. Like it's like the same sort of thing when you get the exercise done and when you get something done, it's like it's a sense of accomplishment, a sense of relief.
I'll let my partners go on the next journey.
Yeah, yeah,
I know that sometimes it's like when going having the withdrawals and having the things that lead up to like weaning off of it,
yeah,
um, thoughts come in where it's like, oh, just like what if I just take one more, or things like that, right? Um,
yeah,
and that's like some of like the hardest parts to get through, like the mental barrier is like is made me like physically it's like totally done, but like mentally it's like how do I get through that mental barrier of like no I gotta push myself outside of it, or I
yeah.
gotta lock this up in this drawer, make it just like a little harder to even get to it. Like how was that mental barrier to yourself, and how do you overcome that mental barrier, and knowing it's like still probably like still there a little bit. How do you even still do it on till this day? Like exercising is great.
Yeah.
And
I
it's really,
guess, I guess it's taking every moment of like every moment, every minute. Sometimes it comes down to like, and I've got to I've got to instill that fear in myself of like, if I do go back and stuff like that, that this is what could happen. And I guess it's just taking each moment of each day, each hour, each times, because the things that I've been through, like I don't want to go back to those times, but I should be proud of myself to getting through what I've been through, especially and be here today to be in this position where I'm in an environment where I can you know uh, keep pushing and keep going forward.
yeah, it's like there's a blessing, a curse with it, because then you live like every moment really like intentionally. You get to live in the moment, right? Like
Yeah.
sometimes days just go by in a sense, and like sometimes it's like the struggle makes you live in the day and makes
Yeah.
you live a little bit more throughout the day rather than it just going by. So it's like there's a blessing and there's curses within the blessings. It's always like a up and down into it. Yeah, because like just live every minute like kind of like the fight, but it's intentional, right? It's an intentional thing.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So it is a fight every single day. And then I think that's something I'll have to live with for a long time. I mean, you especially if you go to like NA rooms and or Alcoholics Anonymous, you see people that are in there that are clean for years and they're still going through um, the fight every single day. It's not just me; it's every addict.
How was it finding the support groups? Like was it help?
Well, well, to be honest, I don't really engage in those groups. Uh, it's I've been in them, I've been out of them. I went through when I went through rehab 6 years ago. I didn't commit fully to the rehab, but I was engaging in the rooms then, and I still have tried. But to me, it's actually a very controversial subject. Whether you're in the rooms or whether you're not, whether you're for it or whether you're not, and it's probably not something I'd probably really would touch on because viewers of people may or may not really disagree with what I probably should say about them. But for me personally, I find them just a little bit too much.
Mhm.
It's the same sort of thing each time. And it is positive. It is positive to reconnect with people and to hear people's story and journey. And it does work for a lot of people. But for me, I believe everyone's journey is different. And for me, the rooms and connecting and that sort of stuff, it's not, especially in my hometown now, it's quite small, but once again it does work for a lot of people, so I'll leave it on that one there.
I'm curious. So I know, you know, in like your darkest moments, how has your hope been restored in your journey?
um well, sometimes I've just picked up the Bible, like even picking up the Bible at some points, and it's risen me from in the darkest of moments. I think I remember just crying and stuff like that, and I've just picked up the Bible, or or just weird things that you wouldn't even imagine. I don't know how to explain it really, but yeah. Um, and yeah, I don't know. Yeah,
Yeah, like for example,
I know it sounds pretty dramatic, like picking up the Bible as though we're gonna die. But
No.
Not at
As a
all.
matter of fact, not at all. Because I can tell you one thing. You know, God loves you.
yeah,
Definitely, definitely does. And there's a saying that He will give His hardest battles to His bravest soldier. right? So you've been very brave to overcome this challenge. And like one particular psalm that always resonate with me is Psalm 91. That thing breaks me up every time I read it, or when I am in a moment where I need to invigorate myself and I need to lift off my spirit. Damn, Psalm 91 is like an injection of adrenaline to my heart
Yeah.
that just fuels me, but at the same time, like humbles me so much. And
Yeah.
Autumn, go ahead. I know you have a question.
No, I think it's really beautiful. I think so the person who's close to me as well, they struggled with I remember them saying how when they would go to the AA meetings, they would feel very just like they didn't have hope because of how long people would be sober for, and it would give them like discouragement, like I can't do that and I can't get there. But then how they would start praying and they would turn to God, and that would give them like the hope that they needed. So thank you for sharing that too, because
Yeah.
they were talking about that too, how I guess hearing other people's stories, they don't if they're fresh in their recovery, it can kind of feel a little intimidating.
It is. It is. Yeah. It is. It is. It is. It is. It is. You know, especially when you're sitting in the room with people like that are like 5 years clean, 10 years clean, and it is kind of. I feel there is in regards to the topic around that. It's like if some people sort of think that if you don't commit to the meetings, you're not committing to recovery, or if you're not doing the 12-step program, you're not committing to recovery fully, which I think is personally, I think is not quite right, because as I said, everyone's journey is different. But I mean, it is definitely committing to those steps and the meetings is definitely the most positive thing to do. You know, but personally for me, no, not so much. But yeah, getting back to the topic of reaching out to God and just praying, and sometimes you're so hopeless that it's the only thing you can do.
Sometimes in like the meetings, I think that they try to create like a system that could maybe wrap around like the average around it, right? But the system probably doesn't like one system doesn't work for everybody, like
Yeah, that's right.
it's different. Um,
Yeah,
if you were to, like, let's say, create another pathway for somebody who is going through their journey of recovery,
yeah,
um, and realizing like you went like the system. There's one system over here, and then there's another journey over here. Um,
yeah,
how would that recovery journey look like for the person who's saying, what, I tried the systems, but the systems, they're not fully working, right? They're like there's good qualities in them. They're
yeah,
great in them. Like they help out in senses, but they're not like fully helping out in other areas. Right?
yeah.
How would you guide somebody that's going through recovery to
Well,
to yeah
yeah. Well, so for me, it's just structure. I mean, so like and structure and fitness and yeah, building a support network and stuff. So for me personally, I do a gratitude list every single day. I do my exercise. I reconnect with the earth and the ground. So I'll go for a walk in my bare feet. I'll get into nature, and I'll just really take myself away from negative situations and negative energies, and really, if something it's just like a TV channel. If something's not working for you, change it. So I guess, but structure, yeah, structure, definitely structure for your journey. Otherwise, because if you don't have structure or discipline, you're going to get lost, and once you get lost, you can be back out there. And if you can put in the miles to go get drugs, like for example, you get a train and you walk, and you get a bus and then you walk 2 kilometers to go get drugs. You can put in the effort, as hard as it is to, do something positive, go for a run, do a gratitude list, and doing gratitude lists is so fundamental, I reckon, because it really takes you out of the moment and makes you realize what you've got and what you don't have. Yeah.
Wow, I love that. That just made me so happy because I was trying to help somebody. I was telling them to do a gratitude list, and
Yeah.
that makes me so happy that you did that as well, because I think when we sit and we reflect on all that we do have, because sometimes it's easy, right, to sit in our hurt and in our pain and our struggle, but then to like make an act of the will to say like, well, thank you for the hot shower that I have, or thank you for my ability to see my loved ones. Like I kind of can take that for granted, but that those are blessings in our life.
Yeah.
I'm curious too, how did your relationships like in your circle change throughout your story?
Oh well, so I've lost everyone basically, but my mum. So, but I've still got my mum, which I'm very blessed for. But and still have some friends, but most people that I know now are still caught up in the drug world and stuff like that. But friends wise, and I pretty much committed what you call social suicide. I guess. I just made a fool of myself, and a lot of people know it. And but it's about now, rebuilding myself and just being myself and committing to that. But yeah, definitely lost a lot of people along the way.
Yeah, the relationships also help
And
with,
family.
yeah, definitely relationship, your support system. Um, this I have two questions for you, Benson. I'm actually very curious. I gotta admit, you're a very brave man. You're a
Thank
very
you.
brave man. And my first question is, when did you notice that you were breaking that relationship with your parents? When did it hit you? When did it strike you? And how what went in through your mind when that shocking moment came? That's my first question.
Basically, I was just cut off. Uh, so I went through a time about 6 years ago where I moved up to Queensland and during COVID time, but I was just basically cut off. It got to the point where I was just cut off, and my older siblings intervened and sort of took over, because I was so draining on my mum, so taxing, and really took it out of her. So she had to like step back, and my older siblings sort of took in and took over, and then I wore that thin, and then it just got to the point where I was just alone, um, around bad people.
My second question is because definitely in that path that you went, the biggest win was finding God and connecting with God. And I don't know if
Yeah,
you're familiar with the prodigal son, right? The
yeah,
prodigal son is such a beautiful. It's kind of it's a story that he tells about go, but he receives you with so much love. When did you notice that God was calling you and that God had? When did you feel all that love from him, like that you were so valuable to him, even if the world said you are this and that, they have that perception, but God said no, you're mine and you're special. When did
I,
that hit?
I think really, I've always sort of known, in a sense, from for years, in a sense, there's got to be something there. But I think really, at the end of last year, like I'd just be fully breaking down, crying, fully breaking down, and I just realized that something was there. Something was just saving me. Something was just pushing me through, and it was no no man, no mum, no nothing. It was you could feel the spirit. You could feel it, and it just yeah, whether it was the frequency of music I was listening to or whatever, but it was almost like once you get to the point of you could only cry so much. I think it really gives you like a strength of like it's like I've got you. It's okay, you know. I think that's the point really. Towards the end of last year, probably in my darkest moments. Yeah,
It's probably like in those moments, it's like when you hit the ground, God's like, "No, you're not on the ground." It's
yeah.
like it's how to lift up, and it gives you that hand, and it's like,
Yeah, I remember one time I was crying so much and I was on the ground crying, and I literally felt I kid you not, I literally felt him like rise me up onto my knees and then onto my feet, and then just breathe, and it was incredible, and just standing there and breathing after being on the ground crying like my eyes out, like thinking it was the end. um yeah, pretty crazy stuff.
Thank you for sharing this. This is so beautiful. Your story is so beautiful, and I just want to thank you for the value of your life, because you're able to come on here and share what you know for others struggling. And what was it like when you had the intervention with your older siblings? Were you open to what they had to say, or were you resistant?
That was it was like they called the police on me. There'd be police rocking up. It was quite toxic. I would say futile. It was if that's the word, futile. um it was dramatic. um there was lots of unnecessary actions taken, lots of police interventions, and obviously a rehab intervention which didn't work, and a second rehab intervention which didn't work. To be honest, it just ghosted me further. And I'm still yet to reconnect with them. They're still sort of ghosting me at the moment, which is fine. I've got beautiful nieces and nephews, and they're all married and stuff like that, and they're successful, they're going really well, so I completely understand. But yeah, they're still in the process of accepting what I was to what I'm becoming, and it's going to take a long time
I
to
think, yeah, I think forgiveness is always there, and I know love heals all, and I know like
yeah,
God will reconcile you guys, but
yeah,
yeah, it's so beautiful. Sorry, go ahead.
love is shown in many ways too. Like
yeah,
those are always like acts of love. In a sense, it's like it's not out of hatred. It's not out of this or that. It's another act of love shown in another way. And
yeah,
rekindle, it'll come through. And like some people, they have like images of like what you were, right? What was like there's like a bubble. Like sometimes people have a bubble around of what this was versus now what it is.
yeah,
And the only way to break through that bubble is just to keep presenting what is. Like
yeah, 100%, 100%.
Yeah, there's always people always try to have this expectation that you have to be this nearly perfect being, even if you're abused drugs or not. And for some people that have those standards so high, it's almost like a double standard.
Yeah,
When you can't even commit to those standards, why are you asking others to commit to that as well, right?
yeah,
So it almost becomes like a paradox. Like you throw yourself in and then you rebound out because you can't even meet those standards.
yeah,
So in a way, I believe God's time is perfect,
Yeah,
and He's preparing you for something, and He's preparing the other side as well to be able to rekindle, reconnect. But it all has to marinate in God's time. Sometimes we want it our way in our time, and things just
yeah,
go and it's a chaos. But
yeah,
when God interferes and say, "Hold on, Benson, you're walking with me today.
yeah,
When you walk with me, you're gonna walk at the same pace as me. And
yeah,
when I let go of your hand, that's when you're ready." That's
yeah,
how good our God is. And my question to you is, because it seems like your family was trying to love you through discipline,
yeah,
right? Because
and
go ahead, go ahead.
yeah, and protection too. Their I was an image, and I was something they didn't want around their kids. Um, which is tough. It's tough love, I guess. Yeah, you know what I'm saying. So I had to accept that, but in a sense, who would want a raging drug addict, lying junkie around what they're trying to grow up? It's like that's the truth behind it. So and yeah, just tough love, and yeah, discipline in a sense of like, look, well, hey, if he's not going to commit to rehab, if he doesn't go to learn through prison or something like that, then why should we let him back into our our system? Our what we our morals, our beliefs and stuff like that, which I completely understand and I respect that
You know,
now
you know,
more so.
it's funny you mentioned that, because the concept of being with God is that doesn't mean that you want to repeat the sin that you committed in the past. But for example, you understand that somebody sacrificed everything for you. And for
Yeah,
that reason, you need to continue living without that sin, but always in the image of your own creator that is perfect. Even though your imperfections are always going to be there, but what
yeah,
guides you and makes you holy is not your acts, is your faith in the God you have put in. And that
yeah,
love that He has is going to free you from every single chain.
yeah,
Every chain that you see today, like for example, the chain of not connecting with your nephew. I'm pretty sure you missed them. But I can
yeah.
tell you one thing, and I tell you this, I'm a little older than you guys. I can tell you, not based on science, because I'm a man of science, and yeah, academically I learn a lot. But one thing I learned from my spirit, from my God, is that He breaks chains. And when He breaks them, Benson, nobody can interfere. No one.
Yeah.
So, my question to you, with breaking chains, what are chains your what was the hardest chain to break when you were recovering?
I believe probably like my ego, I guess. Like of like I still probably do have an ego in a sense, but I believe the ego of using drugs is and being so heavily involved and addicted is okay. It's normal. I believe the breaking of that, realizing that then it's not. It's not normal to do what I was doing. And I guess that is the ego, right? Um,
Yeah, it's a sense
breaking,
of pride.
yeah,
It's a sense of pride to go back to your comfort zone.
yeah. And it was a very toxic comfort zone. And I mean, just like the quantity and the amount and the types of drugs that I was using is just disgusting. And yeah, breaking free of that and realizing that was one big step. To the point of to extreme measures of hospitalizations and further and just complete being always broke and just the list goes on.
I'll let my partners go ahead.
Yeah.
There's a saying with it, like you're as recovering from an addict, you have kind of more. You have and you have like I don't want. It's not an upper hand. It's like you have a stronger tool belt, right? You have a stronger tool belt on you because you have something that you fought, that you're fighting, but versus
Yeah.
some people who doesn't have what they're not fighting, what they're not haven't fought,
Yeah.
and it builds up your resilience, it builds up your disciplines, it builds up your values even stronger. Um, versus like somebody who doesn't even know what the struggle is like in a sense, right?
Yeah.
If you were to put that same energy that you would to like to getting the drugs, to using it, like working out, to finding what success means, right? Well, what does it mean to like for reading like a couple of amounts of books per month, or saying like
Yeah.
reading these amounts of books will get me here in a sense, or something like that. Like it's another way of like channeling. There's a channel that you created of a discipline versus somebody who can't channel that energy somewhere.
Yeah.
So there's always like there's losses, right? But then we have to look for those wins. You have to
Yeah.
look for wins because those wins are going to be there, and they're gonna put you in places where it's like it make you more confident, right? And it makes you more makes you it makes you less vulnerable to reusing, right? Or
Yeah.
more confidence to even help the other persons out, to be like, hey, like you got this, like it's something like that.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say like there's there's these losses, right? But like don't always look at these losses, push them to the side, figure out where are these wins over here.
Yeah. 100%. I mean, and the reason why I started what I was doing as well is like pushing out the message of, we are soldiers. And you can, and just doing it off our iPhone, you can get through whatever you're getting through, and you can have those wins. You can be successful still. You can do it, as hard as it may be. Yeah.
As you're speaking, I'm thinking about Genesis when God breathed his spirit into Adam. And what was it like when you were able to like take that deep breath after like you have journeyed through all of this and you were able to like conquer sobriety? What was it like to breathe that air of like, I'm able to do this and I am capable of doing this?
Well, I get it's an interesting question, because I do still struggle. I am only fresh in recovery, but I take that. Sometimes it's like still. I don't want to say it on a negative front, but like I still breathe it without hope. But I still breathe it like, like I can do it. Because you've got to sometimes to get that breath, you've got to be pushing yourself like on a fitness level, pushing yourself to the limit to get a different sort of breath into you, like that. As it was said earlier, getting that, reconstructing that dopamine level when when you're exercising, that sort of breath, I guess, to that level, um, depends how hooked you were on drugs and depends what drugs you took. I think that's the breath. Not trying to take it away from a religious perspective, but that's I guess maybe what it's trying to say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm curious to know because a lot of people talk about recovery, the processes, but for example, tell us a little bit more of what is the financial toll with that journey, and do you see the difference today? What is that difference?
Well, I'm still unemployed, at the moment. I am looking for a job, but it's hard. I don't want to make excuses, but it is hard to get back into working. Looking, because I've been unemployed for so long, being bashing around doing the wrong thing. The financial time, I was just being broke every single week, living paycheck to paycheck on government support, really. And I don't even want to say how much money I've spent on drugs in the last 10 years. I mean, don't get me wrong, like, I haven't used like for 10 years straight, but I'm saying like the amount of money I've spent, I couldn't even put a figure to it. It'd be disgusting. It'd be embarrassment.
There's a phone game that might be like a phone playing like a work game. Sales is like a game. Like you have these after these calls, and then you get somebody who signs on, and then it kind of helps out. It's like, oh, I got the sale, then boom.
Yeah.
It's great. It's a nice little way to kind of make money, and people are always kind of going to always look for salespeople because you can never run out of sales personnels.
Well, funny enough, actually, the last job I had was actually sales.
Nice.
Yeah. But and actually, I was actually quite. It was tedious, but I held it down for 6 months. But I started using again, and but the company actually shut down. But yeah, funny enough, the last job I had was sales.
Yeah, it's definitely like a fun. It's definitely like it becomes like a hunt, right? It's like, oh wow, we're hunting down for a certain like I'm gonna do this many calls, and it's like, all right, I got a lock. I got 5 people locked in. Like, wow, this is great.
Yeah.
That energy.
But it's funny, Benson, you mentioned this because everyone thinks that addiction stops the moment you are able to control the addiction. I'm sorry, but not thinking about how do you reinstate in society, and that also has to go by stages because the withdrawal is not like, oh yeah, I'm sober, I don't have any feelings, I don't feel nothing, I'm just a normal person, like, like anyone that doesn't have any drug abuse. But there's a cruel reality. It goes by stages and by years, and it doesn't seem to be a existent program that walks people that are getting out and also reinstated into society by stages, right? Stage one, you still have the urge. They need to understand that you really can't hold a job 100% yet, but they need to integrate you there little by little. Do you like? Has there been any programs that you are aware that are successful with reintegration from people that abuse drugs?
Yeah, so the rehab I went to, it was called Duralong in New South Wales. I went there 6 years ago, and I think when you got to like the final stage of the rehab, they'd integrate you slowly into society, into the workforce. And that's a very successful rehab. It's a big, very, very hard to get into and a long waiting list. But I know for a fact, and I'm sure there's a lot of other rehabs that do it that way too. But that rehab there, I know that program, they do integrate you into the workforce, and they give you tasks like sort of working around the rehab and stuff like that, daily, which I know that program does, and I know a lot of programs do. But I guess if you're trying to do it by yourself without rehab, it's hard. Uh, because I think the hardest thing is once you start earning money again. As weird as it sounds, well, once you've got money, for some reason, for me personally, once you get money, you think it's you can handle it again.
That's like credit card users too. Like credit card users that like abuse their cards a lot. Like once you pay it off, and it's like, oh crap, the money's back in there again. Like that's that happens a lot, right? To some, and it's like, how do you break those their habits after a while? They're like, okay, it's becoming more conscious of the habit rather than being like rather than falling down back into it. Like I remember I was 'cause I listen to a lot of podcasts and stuff too and things like that. And I was listening to one of them where they were talking about the financial aspect of like of debts and stuff like that, and like how people will get themselves back into debt after paying a debt. And it's not because they already paid it off. It's just because it's it's just like, oh, all right, it's open account. I'm just gonna go back and use it and run it up again.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like it's a archival or archetypal thing that's happening, and it's like, how do we break that archetypal the not the sin, because I don't know, I don't want to necessarily call it a sin, right? But it's like, how do you break that archetypal pattern that just happens in the human form? And I think maybe, and my thoughts, like just becoming more conscious of it. Like, okay, let's say I got $2,000 this month or something like that, right? Like, how do I disperse $2,000? I'm gonna put this aside for investments. Like maybe that could be like the new graph to look at, to be like, oh, it's another way to play. Like, if you do your safe ones, then do risky ones, because the risky one, it's like it's not as risky as the drugs, right? So you could do like some kind of stuff like that, or it's just being like, I gotta disperse this to groceries, and just being conscious, like conscious awareness could change habitual patterns.
Definitely. I think also when it comes to any sort of abuse, anything radical, you have to also train your brain to put yourself in a situation of understanding that, for example, credit card usage perhaps is a good way, right? You can be conscious of your spending, but your actions, how do you control your brain from not being stimulated to make you feel good when you spend, right? So, like for example, you have to retrain your thoughts. Like for example, give you a good example. If I told you, any one of you guys, I want you guys to go into this water and it's infested with sharks. What's the first thing you guys think? Like, hell no. Exactly. So you can use radical thinking. This is where a good psychologist comes, right? And start making you evaluate. Yeah, you can be conscious, but what is the radical result if you go there? Like, you can take that imagination of, yeah, that's like a pool full of sharks. Am I going to go there?
Yeah.
Right. So you kind of know exactly, you understand the danger with it, and also being realistic. Can I overcome? Is it worth going there? One, can I? Would I be able to survive that encounter? And if the answer is no, then more than likely your conscience alone is telling you. As much as you feel invigorated and you feel inspired to do it, your conscience telling you that's not a good choice, because you already evaluated that is like, you're comparing to, that's almost like being in a shark infested waters and you're bleeding.
Literally.
That's
Yeah.
so Autumn, I'll let you shoot in.
Um, I'm just thinking about how, I think you guys here too, like a lot of people refer to marijuana as a gateway drug. And I think a lot of like teenagers and kids, they'll use it frequently and they don't consider it a gateway drug. But how do you think like you can express to kids like what is the fine line between like using it as like for fun versus using it as a need, and where it becomes like a resource for yourself to get through the day?
I guess using it alone, or starting to really like spend your last dollars on it, or when it starts taking over. I guess that's probably when you realize that it's starting to be a problem, and that's when it can start to shift. But I don't know. I see alcohol as more of a gateway drug, to be honest.
Really?
Um,
That.
Yeah,
'Cause
very
it is a
good,
drug.
Benson.
It is a drug, and it's very normalized more. And alcohol actually gets you into trouble more. It 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 gives you confidence to go get harder drugs. And it's just as much as a drug as weed, is it not? Like, let's be honest, like, really. Um, and it's normalized. It's more. It's just it's legal. It's here in Australia. Weed is legal by prescription, so you can get a prescription. But other than that, it is illegal. But alcohol is in my opinion is the gateway drug.
Yeah.
It's like if you're at a bar and it's like you have a stoner and an alcoholic at a bar and there's a line on the table. Someone's like,
Yeah,
the alcoholic will take the line versus the stoner is like, oh, I'm just gonna stick with my blunt.
yeah,
Like,
yeah, 100%.
Benson, it's interesting what you're saying, like these gateways. You know, in terms of behaviors, right? For example, there's a point where men don't have any more money to or resources to acquire more drugs, and obviously the behavior is always tending to, you know, rob or assault or do something which includes physical, I would say, mechanisms, right? But for
Yeah.
example, in that world that you were in, like how easy is for females to go into prostitution because of those drugs?
Like, it's so easy. Yeah, they can depending on like, obviously, once again, the drugs, that it could just be so easy. Once again, once how hooked they get, I mean, they could just sell themselves so easily. It's pretty sad. um I've seen it like a fair bit, and not only just prostitution, but um like selling themselves for content, that sort of stuff. Yeah, pretty. Yeah, it's very common, pretty very very easy as well, and also yeah, it's pretty crazy actually.
Yeah, and it's only not bad for the person that offers themselves, but also nobody talks about the person that takes advantage of it.
Yeah, there's lots of predators out there, lots of dangerous people that play the game, that are like they're they're king because they've got the drugs. They're dangerous people, and they're sick. A lot of them are like very sick people. And they sort of play king, like God with it. They play God with their drugs. Yeah.
It's funny also because you said something very interesting about, you know, like the manipulation that these people have over people, and you know what saddens me the most about those individuals is that they don't understand the damage they do overall and the traumas they. And you also spoke about the lead way into drugs is that one of them is alcohol. Also, I believe from a from a non-alcoholic substance, also traumas. You
Mm.
know, untreated traumas, and especially we men, we obviously have the tendency of not talking much about our own traumas, right? But let me ask you, in how many people have you seen that didn't get the gateway into drugs because of alcohol, but they got it because of what was going on at home?
A lot of people I've seen, you see a lot of people just born into it, and that's the sad thing, because their parents are junkies. I'm very blessed, very fortunate to be grown up and raised in a household that wasn't like that. But yeah, I've met a lot of people that are definitely into it just because of their parents, and into it that way, into a drug infused household. Um, it's very sad. It's not even their fault, really. I mean, like, they're born addicts.
Yeah, that's the hard part too. Is like environment shapes like who you become, how you become it, and
Yeah.
it's so hard to break out of an environment as well too. It's like you gotta adapt to your environments, and it's like, oh, if you don't see what was different, it's like, oh, this is normal. And
Yeah.
like,
But the funny thing is though, I still became that, even though I had a good, like a good upbringing, and a decent household. I still became that drug addict, despite, when, as I said, kids are growing up with it, and become it because they have no choice, really. But I still became that, even though I didn't. Even though I was much more blessed and much more fortunate than those kids and stuff like that.
there's like trials and tribulations when like in all types of stories, right? And it's like the hardest one is just like kind of finding like the trials, tribulations in our own story in the sense of being like, how do you overcome those? What, how did I fall down into this when this trial or tribulation came up? Um, things like that. It's it's hard to discover in a sense, like where, like, because sometimes it's like the trauma starts in the childhood, right? Or even you can even grow up to like to teenagehood and adulthood where the trauma goes on to, um, and coping with the trauma is one of those hard things, and that's why some people get into drug addictions to cope with certain traumas or certain things that happen. Um,
Yeah. Um, with that, in saying that as well, once you put yourself into, like, the hard drug life, you're putting yourself into trauma because things are going to happen to you. And that's just a given. So you're basically putting yourself into a trauma lifestyle.
I'm not sure if you guys have watched the movie Beautiful Boy with Timothy Chalamet and Steve Carell, but
Yeah.
it's a great movie, and the son actually, it displays his addiction. And something I love from that movie is that they say like he grew up in like a normal household, he had a good life, and he still struggled with addiction. And basically, they say addiction doesn't discriminate; like anybody can fall victim to addiction. And like you're saying, you grew up in a nice home, and I think it's just interesting. Like anybody can really struggle. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I grew up in a. I've personally never met my father, but I've grown up in, with just like my mum, single mum, raising my brothers and sisters. It wasn't like the keeping up with the Joneses white picket fence. It wasn't that sort of. It was. We just got by. We just got through. But compared to what a lot of people have, it was very fortunate. But in going back to what you're saying about the movie Beautiful Boy, that I've seen that movie. Very, very touching, very good movie. Yeah. And he gets into the meth and the ice, when he's in, what is it, college?
Yeah.
Yeah, he started when he was in college, which is, just proof that, anyone can fall into it. No matters where you come from.
And the vulnerability of just being exposed once can change your whole life, your whole dynamic, your whole way of thinking. And the question is really, it's so easy to get in, but it's so hard to withdraw from.
Yeah.
And for example, your testament, you still battle every day. When you get exhausted at times, I know you go and you get revigorated through God. When you get the strength, I understand you also go look for a purpose. And this is what I would say, and I'm curious to know, how do you deal with the poor judgment that people have over your struggle and your fight, because they're not just curious enough to understand and ask you questions, because I'm pretty sure they would probably admire you more than judge you the way they do.
Well, I've burned a lot of bridges. Let's just say that. And I guess in a sense, I'm the boy who cried wolf in it, like literally. And it's just like to the point where, well, I'm still at the beginning of it all, and it's just it's to the point where, oh, here we go again. Benson to do this, Benson, because it's a cycle. It's a repeating. So it's a revolving door. It doesn't seem to end. So in regards to the judgment and stuff like that, it's just it doesn't it's not it's just it's there, but it's not really said anymore. Um, because it's already all been said a dozen times, a million times, but it's still there, and it'll be there for a long time. I mean, until I don't know how long I don't know the number on how long you have to be clean for it to not be there.
Do you feel it even when they don't say anything to you, when
Yeah,
they look at you? How how
yeah.
how inconvenient is that?
I guess it comes down to an insecurity of myself, maybe. Um, but new people meeting new people, I don't think they know uh, the extent of my drug use and what I've actually been through. I don't think they've actually know. Old people and old relationships, they're just over it. Um, yeah,
But that's a good part too. Like you have okay, so you have the real ones, right? That know the story, the origin stories, and then you have like the new friends that you're supposed to meet that
yeah,
can even pull you through to further race, to further purposes, to further things like that. So it's like it's a give and take. It's that balance of like, okay, you got there's people that already put the spear around me and they're seeing me for what I was, but not what I am. All right. And they only see who I am from me just presenting myself more and more, right? And then this your skin gets harder where it's like their judgments that don't really mean too much after more. And then you meet your new friends that are
yeah,
gonna pull you upwards. They're gonna be like, oh wow, and they're gonna push more. They're gonna give you a new light of yourself. They're not gonna put on that old light, the repetitive. Oh, Benson is this, Benson is that. They're gonna be like, oh, Benson is this, Benson is that. It's a whole different thing, and it's gonna be that
yeah,
cycle, like that old and new, old and new.
You know what?
yeah,
What's funny is that, also, like, for example, we are in our behavior, we are imperfect, and we normally will always judge before anything, or we have a perception before an hypothesis. Even before we even jump into a theory, we never even investigate to do an hypothesis, right? And it's funny because I'm trying to put myself on Benson's shoes, and every time somebody that knows him sees him, hasn't walked one day in his shoes, not once, but perhaps
mm,
has a big list of things that they have in mind about him. But then, and these are imperfect beings that also commit their own sins and their own mistakes in life. It's just they're not as known as Benson. But then on the other hand, Benson goes to God, and God, all he says, I love you. The
mm,
difference about the behavior of a perfect being welcoming you, telling you that he loves you no matter what you do, because it's not about how much love you have for him. God has unconditional love for you. It doesn't matter how many times you fall. God's love is infinite. Now try to imagine infinity. You can't. You never seen it because we're limited. So there's a difference between the behavior of love, between the love people give, which is very limited and comes with a lot of judgmentalism. Then you go to the other side, a perfect being that never sinned, tells you you're welcome here. As a matter of fact, where you're weak, I'm going to make you strong. It's not because he's going to, make you muscular. No, he's going to be present with you in those moments. And,
Yeah.
and my question to you is, when you go to that other side, that side where God tells you and welcomes you, what is the first thing you say to yourself when you go there?
Why? I think why. Um, yeah, I think why? Because you're in that moment of your worst times, and you're like, why? What have I done? Why? And he God answers in his way of bringing you out of that, and reassuring you. So I think the answer to that is why. I mean, there could be a lot of answers, really. But I
That's
think for
that's a
me,
good that's a good way of thinking it. That's a good way of thinking it, because like, why me? But then,
yeah,
also God said, why not you? Like,
yeah,
because at the end, it's not how you start, it's how you end.
yeah, 100%, 100%. It's Rome wasn't built in a day, right?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Go ahead,
Yeah.
Autumn.
What was it like setting the boundaries with like people that you used to use with? I know you probably had to cut those relationship out totally, but what was it like making that decision that they can't be around you anymore?
I still struggle with it, um, because you form such a brotherhood bond with them, a close bond with them, and it's like they're your mates. Um, but they're trouble, and I'm trouble too. um, um, it's hard, and it's almost like it's almost like you lose s- someone close to you. It sucks, to be honest, because you have so many memories and so many good times of using drugs and having fun. Fun. um, that's the harsh reality. It sucks putting up boundaries, and I guess it's the same on the other side. It's the same thing as old friends that aren't caught up in the drug life. Them putting a boundary up for you. Um,
Mhm.
Same thing, really, right? Um, yeah, it's hard, but uh, it's like, don't respond to that text, or just don't answer that call, block that number, move on, and as people do to you.
Mhm. Has any one of those friends that you have distanced yourself has been a little bit supportive of your recovery, or your stage of recovery, that say like, hey, just don't come here? No, you're doing okay. Continue in that path. Have at least one of those?
I've had at least one, sort of, yeah, but they've still given me drugs at the end of the day. uh, I think I personally think that I've been cut off from some purposely. I think, like some that I used hard drugs with, like for a long time, I think they cut me off on purpose. just cold turkey. I think they did. I believe they did. I want to hope they did. Because it's sad, losing friends and stuff like that, especially when it's all about the good times, right? But yeah, I believe I've been cut off on purpose, and I have definitely been at times where they've said, "No, enough, Benson. You're done for now." And I've actually asked at some point some people, cut me off, and they've respected that. As hard as it is, when you say cut me off and then you ring them the next day and then you ring them 10 times and they don't answer, it's like, oh, you know what I mean? It's like, but then again, they're respecting your wish for them to cut you off, which is, there, like, there's a big stigma about all these. They're good. They're not bad people. They're not robbing. They're not all robbers. They're not all thieves. They're not all we're still good people. We just make poor decisions. Yeah.
He needs to feed his family. He needs to put like home, rent, all that. It's just it's a different way, right? Doesn't mean he's a bad person for
Yeah.
selling stuff.
So selling drugs, I guess, is
It depends on
everyone's got to eat. Everyone's got to eat, right? I'm not advocating it. I'm not saying it's a good thing. But at the end of the day, people need to make money. That's if you don't have money, you're not good. It's once again, that's a controversial topic. And I don't want to advocate, and I don't want to say anything in regards to that. But at the end of the day, people still got to eat.
Yeah, it's a business for them as
Yeah.
well, and it's lucrative, and it takes them away from perhaps the hardships of building something from scratch, because it's also in high demand. So it's also it's almost like it's tempting to do because of the fact that that you can grow fast. The problem is you can
Yeah.
also crash fast too, because obviously you're gonna draw the wrong attention competitors, police,
Yeah.
right? And then
Yeah.
the bigger you are, the stronger people you ally with. That means more
Yeah.
trouble at the end of the day. I have
Yeah.
a question for you, Benson. The police obviously have a perception about drug abusers. What was the relationship between you and the police when you were like in the streets and abusing drugs?
Well, I wasn't necessarily like in the streets. I wasn't a street kid. I wasn't hard out in the streets like that.
Okay.
My relationship with the cops is basically like mental health sort of stuff. But they definitely, uh, how do I say without like sort of making myself sound, um, look, there's different there's different commands of different areas of police, different of areas that know you, that in your local area, and you become known. You do and if you say you're not, then you're stupid, because you're going to the same spots. You're going, you're mixing with the same crowds that are known to police, and you will eventually become known. But I think they know who's doing bad things, and they will go for that. Like it's like they know who you are, they know what you're doing, but so long as, I think personally, so long as you're not like hurting anyone, so long as you're not like doing like bad, like robberies, bad crimes, they'll just know that you're just a drug user, and if you get caught, I guess it's the luck of the draw, really. I mean, or you're selling drugs like significantly, and they know that, and it'll take time for them to get to that point where it's like, okay, they're going to pin you for something, and if they don't like you, they'll get you for something else, or they'll go the mental health route. So they'll rock up to your house and they'll take you away mental health wise. That's been my experience with it, and that's happened multiple times. Yeah, which is it's traumatic. I think the last encounter was I finally got my own rental, and I finally had my own place to stay, and I had like a sort of psychotic sort of episode, and they just rocked up, like three or four of them just rocked up, and they said they knew me by my first name, and they said, "Oh, any this drug or that drug tonight, Benson?" And I said, "No, no, no," and I just did about 2 months in a psychiatric hospital, and I got out, I got back on my own feet, and they just rocked up, and then it got to the point where like they wouldn't leave. They would just keep asking, but they would not leave. And they were in the house, they were walking around, they were looking, they were just. And long story short is, I lost the rental, I lost the position, I lost my place. I had to move out because of the report. But it got to the point of where it got to the point where it's like, okay, we're going back to the hospital, aren't we? Because the ambulance rocked up and they put their gloves on and they're walking past the door and you see the needle and you're like, oh, here we go again, you know? And I just got to the point, I get to the point where it's just like, all right, we're going then. So you put your shoes on and I remember I just jumped to the ground and resisting arrest, basically. You're going to take me, you're taking me. And then there's three or four of them on you and the ambulance is there with their jabbing you with the needle. And then next minute you're back in the hospital and you haven't even done anything wrong. I mean,
Wow, that so completely against your will. I don't know what's your take, guys, on that. Like to me, it's almost like one unjustified if you didn't do anything.
yeah, it's because of my history of mental health and because the first big is because 6 7 years ago I had a Xanax withdrawal seizure. So I had what's called a tonic clonic withdrawal seizure. So I basically died in my mum's. I was going blue in my mum's arms. She called the ambulance, and I came out of the seizure. You come when you have those types of seizures, you come out either violent or confused and not knowing. And I came out of mine very violent, and I actually attacked officers and ambulance without even knowing. I don't remember. Um, and that was the beginning of, I think, the red flags, especially in New South Wales. In Australia, so a different state. So like New South Wales doesn't communicate with Queensland, if that makes sense. So if you're flagged for something in New South Wales, they won't necessarily know about it in Queensland. But the beginning for me, the flagging for me of mental health, and because of my size too, I am quite tall. I'm not like necessarily that skinny. Um, yeah, I came out violent and I attacked them because I didn't know, you know. And then it progresses to further things of like resisting arrest, and then that's another flag. And then how is anyone supposed to react when there's like 4 or 5 men on you with their knees on you, and then the paramedics with um, needles and stuff, putting gloves on? It's I mean, even in hospitals, when they come in, through the doors of your room, they come in with 10 to 12 nurses, and they have the needle ready, like, and there's no. It's yeah. When it happens, like when you've like for me, it's happened like half a dozen times, 6 to 8 times. Remember when I was talking about the rental, when I lost the rental
Yes.
and stuff like that. They put me in a after what they did. They put me in a bed where I was strapped, like a restrained bed, strapped for 4 hours under police supervision. In one time. When I'm even trying to bite like the straps to get out, and the police are standing there. It is traumatic in a sense, because I'm scared I'm scared of them. I'm concerned if they get called, if something happens, I know the drill. You know what I mean. I know what's going to happen. I know there's force. I know there's needles. I know there's, you know what I mean. And you see it in the news and stuff, like guys losing the plot, running down the street with knives and just get shot or tasered. You know, that's the reality of it. Once you get into I guess there's two sides to it. You go the crime side, where like you're consistently getting locked up and tasered and going to jail, or then there's the mental health side, where it's like you're renowned for mental health, and depending on your size and your history, it's like it's it's like for example, last time I was in there was this one nurse, for example, the 10 of them in the room, coming in the room, and they're like, one of them was just clicking, one of them was just doing a click just to see how you react, and you like you sort of lose faith. Not faith, but like, is that right? They're trying to trigger you, or see what triggers you to give you the help. Uh, you can't really. Can you really say throwing someone in a hospital and then just feeding them pills and watch them walk? Is that, and then just releasing them? It's not. It's not really help, is it? Like it's. If you guys know what I'm trying to say.
It's like
Yeah, it's against your consent too, because for example,
yeah.
here in the U.S., we don't have, you know, like asylums anymore. We don't have like and you can see, like, for example, in order for somebody to be intervene in mental health and a mental health special care, it has to have at least a family member consent if that person can't do it for themselves. But it seems
No.
like they abducted you literally.
Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like a kidnap from a movie. Like, get Benson. Like, it's crazy. Guys, I'll let you come in with whatever you think and questions.
It's hard too because when you had your rental, like for you, that was a fresh new start. And because they
Yeah.
knew your history, it was kind of like you were already in the wrong. And I don't think that that's right. I feel like they have to at least have a sense of hope that, hey, like he's doing well, and not just like totally sabotage your recovery, because that is traumatic. And then you
Yeah.
just said because of that, that was the result of you losing the rental. So it's kind of like how can they assist like people in recovery, like not just by going off of their history and their addiction history, but to like not be the cause of them losing like everything that they've worked so hard for, and I can't even imagine what that feels like to have like five men on your back and you don't know what's going on, and they have their knees on you, and it is very, very scary. And I feel like we can't forget that people who struggle with addiction, they have dignity and they are people, and like that could be like our brother, our our fellow, our uncles. Like we have to treat them with respect, and I think like sometimes like it goes out the window just because they're like, oh well, they're like um so thank you for sharing that. That was so vulnerable, and I just want to like acknowledge, like, thank you
No,
for
it's fine.
yeah.
And the sad thing is like that's a rental. That was a private rental. So I
Yeah.
got into it with banks that it wasn't public housing, and that is the problem. I think the next step if you don't have a place to live is you have to be homeless. You have to go through public housing system finding a place, and I think you get two options. You get offered two options in Australia, and if you knock them back, or two or three options for your public housing, I think, and you get put in places that are not so great, and it's just a repeating cycle, and the system does really lack here in Australia, um, and ironically, which sucks, is I got blacklisted from the real estate agents because of what happened. So
It's almost like a
yeah,
revolving door, right? Like instead of pushing you out of the harmful environment, it's almost like the system pulls you back, wants to pull you back where there's more of that environment. And it
yeah,
makes complete no sense, right? Because at the end of the day, like that's what I was concerned about the program, right? Because the program is to get you out, to get you back in, to curve you back in. That's not a successful, I would say, program. Um,
no,
and also, in order to overcome this, there's a lot of finances that has to come with it, because it's not only about word of mouth. It's not only about like, hey, let me motivate you, Benson. No, it's about like showing up, investing, right? But at
yeah,
the same time, investment in also finance.
yeah,
Because, for example, when you're overcoming addiction and trying to control and cope with your new environment, right? You also have to start eating healthier. Why?
yeah,
Because your body's gonna. You're working out now. Your body, little by little, is gonna start saying, "I don't want food. I need nutrients, because my
yeah,
brain needs nutrients." Why? Because the chemicals that I had for all these years, little by little, have to get out of my system. And how you do that? Nutrients, eating healthy. Here in the U.S., eating healthy is more costly than eating junk food.
yeah,
Believe it or not, I don't know how it is in Australia, but
yeah,
that's what I'm saying. Like there needs to be also the finances to support a very good overcoming drug abuse system, right? I don't know. I'll
yeah.
let the guys continue. I'm sorry, guys, that I interrupted you, but it was fascinating what he was saying. It's like they push you out to bring you back in, and it makes no sense.
And, and
So
I was fortunate. I was fortunate enough to be able to come home to my mum's to live at my home. I'm very fortunate for that. And if I didn't have that, it would be the same story as what it would have been uh, in previous times where I couldn't come home. And you're in the system then, and the system is basically is it's a process of, they call it link to home, like they call it link to home. So you get like a short amount of stay, X amount of days in like a hotel place, and then you start the process of public housing. And but then there's a lot of homelessness in between that, and couch surfing it, and finding your feet by yourself. It's a very hard system, especially if you are addicted. It's almost as like if once in there, once you're doing it, if you are hooked on hard drugs and doing hard drugs, it's very hard to manage it. Really, I mean, you're going to get unwell.
I can also imagine going like through the withdrawal phases as well, like have like the Xanax seizure, like that's a hard one too, because it's like you're off the drug, then in the eyes of somebody who doesn't know what exactly what that seizure looks like you're overdosing on a drug. And
Yeah.
then you get like the ambulance over, it's like this is just a reaction from me not taking the drug, right? And it's just
Yeah.
my body acting in this type of way for that. And that's hard too, because then when you wake up from it and you have everybody like you either like you said, you either wake up confused or in a panic. And
Well, you see, I woke up for the way that I did, but I actually woke up in ICU 3 days later with a tube down my throat, and
Oh, man.
and a catheter, and I woke up. And mum was just next to me. My mum was just by my side. But I woke up 2 days later. They had to sedate me that much. That's where I woke up in the hospital with like a tube like that big down my throat. Yeah, and I was in the place for 2 days prior to waking up, and this was 6 years ago, 7 years ago, and I still continued to abuse the stuff. But I was in the place where before ICU, where it's just defibrillators and black room. So in that room it's like you're like, is he gonna live? Is that you're dead? You're not. You're on life support. They're forcing oxygen into you. You know what I mean? And then you go to ICU once you become a little more stable. And so not only was it traumatic for me, but it's traumatic for my mum. Like seeing me there with all these tubes attached to me and cords, you know, and she'll live with that too. But she knows. I just can't imagine how hard it is for her too. To not only did she witness the whole seizure, but then she had to witness me in the hospital on tubes and cords. You know, yeah, I'm sure you can imagine.
Did she ever tell you how she felt when you were in danger? Did she ever express her emotions about,
Oh,
when you
yeah.
expose yourself to these things? Because I'm a father, and I know you guys don't have kids, but it's a very unique feeling, and you always want your kids to do well and to be in out of harm. I'm just curious to understand what your mom said to you and how that also made you more conscious about that you needed to start using that as self-love initiative.
Yeah, I remember her saying that she was that distressed when I was having a seizure in her arms, like I was going blue. She couldn't even call. You guys call 911. We're 000 over here. So she couldn't even call 000. She could only call her friend who was a nurse, who then called. She was in that much of a panic. She couldn't even like use the phone properly to call for help. She called a friend who called the ambulance. They were there. But I remember when I woke up, I remember she was just, it was like her eyes just like, it was like, I can't explain it. It was just like her eyes just like lit up, like a sigh of, just like, thank God, like a tear almost came down her face. Like she was just like, he's awake, and I can only put myself in from my perspective, but putting it into her perspective, I can't imagine how it'd feel. um, yeah, pretty sad.
Go ahead, Autumn.
How would you describe your mom, and what is your relationship like with her now?
She's beautiful. She's my rock. She's my everything. she's still here. I'm grateful for her unconditional love every single day. I've only ever had my mum, and she's still here despite my trial, despite everything I've put her through, despite everything. So long as I'm staying on the right path and doing the right things, she will continue to be supportive. But I think of the world of my mum. Yeah. Yeah, yeah, she's very special to me.
Let her know we said hi.
Yeah. We're team Benson's mom all day.
Yeah, she. In saying that, she. Another thing is, when I lost that rental and stuff, and they put me in the bed, in the stretcher in the bed, she was actually parked down the road because she was actually dropping some food. She was actually dropping something off to me before it all happened, and so she witnessed me from a distance, being wheeled up the driveway into the ambulance with the white sheet over me. She thought I was dead.
Yeah.
Like, yes, that's another thing that she's witnessed too. But she said that she heard me like starting to yell out and be and carrying on. So she knew I wasn't dead. But as a parent, I can't imagine what it's like seeing those things. And I mean, there's only so much you can put your parents through, right? But she's still here, so God bless her.
Definitely.
Yeah.
That's so beautiful. And then, how would you describe yourself now? And what are your dreams for your future?
Well, I'm a lot more confident. I'm a lot more. I'm happier. I'm grateful. I see how blessed I am. You know, even just the small things like you go for a walk, you notice another human, and you smile and you say hello. Yeah, and just yeah, just that compared to just rotting away in a room, smoking drugs. And I guess for my dreams for my future is I guess at the moment is just keep spreading the message of good light, positivity, and I hope to one day maybe. I was a university student for 3 years, but I dropped out. Uh, so I sort of stopped that avenue. And my dreams and goals for the future, I guess, would be maybe own a business or something, or and just give back and help people. I
You're
think
you're,
that's
you're
what I
doing
can.
it. Believe it or not, with what you're saying today, and thank God for the technology we enjoy today. You're definitely going to reach a lot of people that perhaps, you know, at a young age, nobody listens to their parents, but they listen, and people like you can influence through your voice. I'm pretty sure you're going to change a lot of people, and perhaps that's the reason why you're here today. Why we
Yeah,
connected? We connected suddenly.
yeah,
It wasn't like, oh, let me call my boy Benson. You know, I know him for all these years. No, it just happened. And when I reached out to you, Benson, it was funny because like you were like, "Are you sure you want to talk to me?" I'm like, I was like, I was like, "What? Yeah, of course." Like this podcast is about that. It's
yeah,
not about fame. It's not about none of these things. This is about people's lives, their value,
yeah,
their moments, their circumstances, and also their story. You know, and when I was telling the guys, I was like, Benson has a very. They were like jumping up down like they hit lotto or something. We were really happy to have you, and I'm gonna go even a little further. And I don't know if my friends here, partners, would agree with me. We're gonna do a series called The Walk, and It's about talking about the perspective of God's teachings. Like
yeah,
for example, we're gonna start our first episode on Tuesday. God willing, and it's about the 40 years in the desert uh, with the Israelites versus the 40 days of Jesus in the desert. I would like to extend when we do one of these shows, The Walk. I would like to extend an invite to you so you can join us.
Yeah,
And
sure.
you can
Yeah.
give your perspective about what we're talking. Welcome to our family. You're one of us. Don't think that just this is a one and off. I definitely want to invite you. I don't know what you think, guys.
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We'd love
100%.
Yeah, I'd love to have it. Thank you so much for having me. And yeah, it's a great experience. And I mean, as you said on the phone, the door's open. So I mean, it's good to share. It's good to help. And I guess the more we talk and the more we spread the message and speak of our truths in our life, we help people. And share a different, each owns perspective of their journey in their life. So
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much, Ben. Yeah, because I'd love to have you on that too, like sharing that perspective, sharing like how the word impacts, how it impacts each other. Like that's
Yeah.
that's what it's all about.
Yeah. Let me ask you a question, Benson.
yeah,
If your mom was on the other side of the camera, not us, what will you tell her?
I just I actually wrote something the other day. It was about Mama, I swear to you that I'll never hurt you with words. It's something it's sort of something I heard, but I derived it into my own words. But it'd be like, Mum, I'd never hurt you again. With words, with silence, with anger, um, for what I've put you through, and you're still here. That thing of it never hurt your own mum. I think that's what I'd say. Mum, never again. I'll never hurt you again. I'll only ever give you the love that you give me. You know what I mean?
Great. Well, I don't know if the guys want to say their final goodbyes or before anything, and I will conclude the episode. Go ahead, guys.
Yeah.
You have a channel. You can channel your energies. There's a channel open. Don't forget to use that channeled energy there. I think the dreams are there to be heard and to be chased and to go after. So don't stop helping out other people. And if you see somebody that's struggling in the journey, you can help them through it. That's about experience, right? Like,
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for using your voice too. I think sometimes we can feel like nervous or like, why should I say anything? But your story matters. And I've learned so much from your story. And thank you so much for coming on again and sharing. You've really inspired me. And
Yeah.
you just inspired me too to love those who are struggling in my circle and to just keep supporting them and encouraging them. And thank you. You've given me some tools to help them too. So
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for having me. I really appreciate it. It was very good. And I guess I'll see you next time, eh?
Definitely. And don't forget one thing that Benson definitely taught us is not only resilience, but count your blessings. Count your blessings. That was my major takeaway from Benson. It's like, don't undermine anything that God gives you. Don't undermine life. Don't undermine even the challenges that come out of the other side. Thank you so much, Benson. And we will send you the invite for the walk. You've been officially invited to the walk. So
Okay,
hopefully
cool.
you'll have fun with us in that journey as well. But thank you, Benson. Your story is definitely worthy of people listening to. And thank you for honoring us to have you and taking your
welcome.
time to be here with us. Now, like I said, the day I go fight some salties, I'll come visit you, Benson.
Yeah, man. No, God bless you all. Thank you so much for having me. I'll see you next time.
Yes, sir.
Well,
All right.
I'm trying to coexist, exist.